We always hear about the really big scientific breakthroughs, the headline grabbers.
Right.
But behind those advances, there are a ton of essential tools and components, many of them surprisingly small,
Yeah.
like tiny, but playing this huge role. Today, we're going to zoom in on one of these essential tools, these workhorses of science,
Okay.
magnetic beads.
Yeah, magnetic beads. We actually just got a global magnetic bead market report for 2025.
Oh, wow.
And, it paints a really interesting picture.
Yeah.
It's dynamic, rapidly evolving,
Yeah.
and these magnetic beads, they're having this, surprisingly big impact.
For something so small.
Exactly, for something so small.
And so for all of you listening, this is going to be your guided tour
That's right.
through this really interesting market.
Yeah.
So we're not just going to throw numbers at you. We're
Yeah.
going to unpack this report and give you a clear picture of the magnetic bead market,
Right.
its current size, its growth drivers, the strongest regions,
Yeah.
and importantly, what are these magnetic beads actually being used for?
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive in.
Sounds good.
All right.
So the report kind of kicks off with a global perspective.
Okay.
And the figures, they immediately tell a very compelling story.
Mm.
So in 2025, the worldwide market for magnetic beads is projected to be, get this, around 400 and 620 million USD.
Wow, that's huge.
Huge. But that's not all. The really interesting part is where it's headed. By 2033, this market is forecast to hit a staggering 103.38 million USD.
Wow, so that's more than double
More than double.
in just 8 years.
In 8 years, yeah.
So what kind of yearly growth rate are we talking to get there?
So that translates to an average, a CAGR, a compound annual growth rate of 12.20% between 2025 and 2033.
Okay.
And for context, the report uses 2024 as a baseline year.
Right.
And they look at historical data going all the way back to 2021.
Okay, so significant growth on a global scale.
Absolutely.
But I'm always kind of interested in the regional nuances.
Yeah.
Where are magnetic beads seeing the most traction right now?
So geographically, North America, they're leading the pack.
Yeah.
In 2025, their market is estimated to be 1,709.4 billion USD,
Wow.
that's over 40% of the total global revenue.
Oh, wow.
Now, their projected growth, while still strong, is a bit lower than the global average, with a CAGR of 10.6% from 2025 to 2033.
Yeah, that makes sense when you consider the high concentration of major pharma and biotech companies in that region.
Exactly.
The report breaks down North America even further, right?
Yes, it does.
What are the key dynamics within those countries?
Absolutely. So the United States, they are the powerhouse
Okay.
within North America, with a projected market size of 1,348.72 million USD in 2025 and a CTR of 10.4%. And this is mainly because those big pharma players, they're really invested in using these beads for everything, developing new treatments, diagnostics, drug development, you name it.
Right.
Canada, on the other hand, has a market size of 205.13 million USD and a slightly higher CAGR of 11.4%. And they are seeing growth, particularly in the clinical diagnostics area. And Mexico, 155.56 million USD with an 11.1% CAGR.
Yeah.
And so all this kind of paints the North American picture. What's interesting here is that North America's healthcare and research infrastructure, it's really well established. And that gives them a very strong foundation to adopt this technology.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now let's hop over to Europe. What's the story unfolding there?
So Europe, they're a major player as well, over 30% of the global revenue,
Wow.
with a market size of 139.80 million USD in 2025. And they have a pretty good projected average yearly growth of 11.2%.
Okay, and just like North America, Europe is a diverse landscape.
Right.
Which countries are really driving the growth there?
So a standout is Germany,
Okay.
with a market size of 265.28 million USD, a CAGR of 11.4%. And this growth is closely tied to this increasing focus on molecular biology research. The United Kingdom, with 225.09 million USD and a 12.0% CAGR, is also seeing very strong demand. And that's thanks to the use of magnetic beads and diagnostic kits in many areas of medical research. Then we have France, Italy, Russia, Spain. They're also significant markets, all with their own growth trajectories.
Right.
Now, it's also worth noting that countries like Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland,
Okay.
even Luxembourg, While smaller, in terms of overall market size,
Yeah.
they're still showing pretty solid CAGRs. The report suggests that Europe's biotechnology and pharmaceutical sectors, which are robust, are really driving that growth,
Okay.
especially with all the advancements in protein purification techniques, genetic analysis, and drug development.
Right. So North America and Europe are the current leaders in terms of market size.
That's right.
But I have a feeling that APAC, the Asia Pacific region, is going to see the biggest growth in the coming years. Am I right?
You are absolutely right. APAC, with a market size of 1,108.8 million USD in 2025,
Yeah.
holding about 23% of the global revenue, they are the engine of growth in this market. And the projected CAGR from 2025 to 2033 is a remarkable 15.1%.
15.1%. That is huge. It's huge. What's fueling that kind of explosive growth in Asia?
It's a combination of factors. China, with a big market already at 465.70 million USD
Yeah.
and a 14.6% CAGR, they've seen this rapid increase in demand, mainly due to the expansion of their healthcare infrastructure.
Yeah.
India, while currently a smaller market at 110.88 million USD, has a very impressive CAGR of 17.0%.
Wow.
And that's driven by this growing need for more diagnostic testing.
Right.
Japan and South Korea are also big markets showing strong growth. But what's really interesting here is the increasing investment and activity in research across the APAC region. Academic and research institutions focusing on areas like, molecular biology, genetics, biomedical research, countries like Australia, Singapore, Taiwan, also making their contributions to this dynamic region. So overall, this increase in R&D investment and the growing healthcare sectors in these countries, they're major drivers for this fast growth.
Yeah, so while North America currently has the biggest piece of the pie,
Yeah,
looks like APAC is on track to maybe even become the dominant market.
potential.
If these growth rates hold, what about other regions?
Right.
South America, Middle East, Africa.
So South America has a market size of 175.56 million USD in 2025, holding more than 5% of the global revenue and a solid CER of 12.9%. Brazil and Argentina, they're the key players here. Brazil's biotechnology industry is expanding, and Argentina's collaborations with global biotech firms all contributing to this growth. Now, the Middle East, market size of 184.80 million USD, a KDR of 13.5%, and they are showing promising development, particularly in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. What's interesting here is, the report points out, a growing use of magnetic beads in environmental testing in this region. Then we have Africa, currently a smaller market share, around 1%, with a market size of 101.64 million USD, a KGR of 12.5%. But they are seeing rising demand of forensics, so things like DNA extraction and biomarker analysis, especially in South Africa. So these regions, they are starting from a smaller base, but there's definitely a lot of growth potential there.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see these tiny beads, finding their way into such diverse applications around the world.
It is.
Now, the report also breaks down the market based on, different types of magnetic beads
Right.
and their applications.
Yeah.
So let's start with the bi-type category.
Great.
What are the main kinds of magnetic beads?
So according to the report, the cells category is probably going to be the biggest segment.
Okay.
This basically refers to magnetic beads designed for use with cells.
Okay.
So things like cell enrichment, sorting, isolation.
Right.
Imagine you have this complex mixture of cells.
Yeah.
These beads can be designed to bind to specific types of cells. And then researchers can pull them out magnetically.
Oh, wow.
This is incredibly important in immunology and oncology research.
Right.
They use this to isolate circulating tumor cells, which are basically cancer cells that break away from a tumor
Mm-hmm.
and circulate in the bloodstream. This is key in liquid biopsies,
Okay.
which are a much less invasive way to detect and monitor cancer compared to traditional tissue biopsies.
Makes sense given, all of the advancements in cell-based therapies and diagnostics.
Exactly.
Now, what about the fastest growing segment within that bi-type category?
So that would have to be immunoprecipitation.
Okay.
Now imagine you have a soup of different proteins in a cell.
Okay.
Immunoprecipitation,
Yeah.
it's a technique to isolate and purify a specific protein or a group of proteins that interact
Yeah.
from that complex mixture.
Oh, I see.
So they use magnetic beads coated with antibodies that specifically recognize the protein you're interested in
Yeah.
to grab that protein. And then they use a magnetic force to pull it out.
Wow.
This is fundamental in proteomics, which is the study of proteins, as well as drug discovery and identifying biomarkers. The efficiency and specificity that magnetic beads offer that's driving this fast growth.
Right.
The report also mentions other types of magnetic beads designed for targeting things like pathogenic microorganisms,
Uh,
so bacteria, viruses even, also working with nucleic acids,
DNA, RNA.
DNA, RNA, exactly, peptides, proteins in general, highlighting just how versatile this technology is.
So we've looked at like the what in terms of type of target.
Right.
Now let's look at the how they work, like the magnetic core. What's the breakdown there?
So ferromagnetic beads, they currently have the biggest market share. These are typically made of iron oxide compounds and are strongly magnetic when you apply an external magnetic field. This strong response makes them great for the bioseparation and diagnostic applications we talked about, like liquid biopsies and purifying nucleic acids.
Hmm.
However, the superparamagnetic segment is growing very rapidly.
Okay.
And superparamagnetic beads have a really interesting property.
Okay.
They're very strongly attracted to a magnetic field, allowing for very good separation.
Hmm.
But once you remove that magnetic field, they completely lose their magnetism and don't retain any residual magnetic moment. This is a big plus because it prevents the beads from clumping together, which then can increase the accuracy and efficiency of things like cell separation, immunoassays, and nucleic acid extraction.
Hmm.
So this improved performance is why they're becoming more popular.
So while ferromagnetic beads are like the current workhorse,
Yeah.
sounds like super paramagnetic beads with their ability to not clump
Right.
might be the ones to watch,
Right.
in the future.
Definitely.
Might even become the dominant type. Now, when we're talking about something as small as a bead,
Yeah,
size must be crucial.
absolutely.
How is the market divided based on size?
So the 520 micrometer size range, that's currently the largest share of the market. This size is kind of like the sweet spot
Okay.
because they have a good surface area for binding to target molecules
Mhm.
while still being magnetic enough for easy manipulation. This makes them really good for many applications.
Yeah.
Immunoassays, cell sorting, extracting nucleic acids, especially in high-throughput screening where you're processing many samples quickly. Right. And also liquid biopsy. However, the fastest growing segment is the less than 5 micrometer size range.
Oh, wow.
These smaller beads, they have a much better surface to volume ratio, which means they can bind more effectively and react more quickly. This makes them super valuable in targeted drug administration, where you want those beads carrying the drugs to reach specific cells,
Mm-hmm.
and in more sensitive nucleic acid purification techniques and single-cell characterization.
It's fascinating how, even at this microscopic scale,
I know, it's incredible.
the trend toward miniaturization is driving innovation
It is.
and new applications.
It's amazing.
Finally, let's talk about where these beads are actually being used.
Yeah.
What are the main applications?
Right.
And where is their use expanding the fastest?
So in vitro diagnostics, or IVD, is currently the largest application segment. We touched on this before. Magnetic beads are super important in IVD for analyzing molecules, purifying samples, identifying biomarkers, like detecting pathogens, bacteria and viruses,
Mm,
performing immunoassays, and extracting nucleic acids, particularly in liquid biopsies and point-of-care testing.
right.
But the bioresearch sector, that's the area that's growing the fastest.
Okay.
In bioresearch, magnetic beads are essential for isolating cells, purifying proteins, and extracting nucleic acids. They play a crucial role in understanding protein interactions, analyzing gene expression, studying genomes, identifying biomarkers for diseases, and even in early drug discovery.
Wow.
Being able to quickly and efficiently isolate specific molecules from complex biological samples, that's what makes them so valuable in research.
Okay, so diagnostics are like the main application now.
Yeah.
But research is like a hotbed of innovation
Absolutely.
and a driver of future growth.
Definitely.
This gives us a really good overview of where the market is today. But the report also looks into the factors that are driving this growth, as well as some challenges and emerging trends.
Yes, it does.
What are the main forces pushing the magnetic beads market forward?
So the report identifies a few key market drivers. The first one is the increasing demand for in vitro diagnostics, which, as we said, is a major application.
Right.
Second, the growing use of magnetic beads in genomic and proteomic research.
Uh-huh.
And finally, the continuous advancements in magnetic bead technologies themselves.
Right.
They're always improving, innovating, and opening up new possibilities.
Makes sense. But no market grows without facing some hurdles. What are some of the restraints or challenges that might be slowing down, even faster growth?
So the report mentions two main restraints.
Okay.
First, the cost. Magnetic beads and the equipment needed to use them, it can be quite expensive,
Yeah.
which can be a big barrier,
Yeah.
especially for smaller labs or diagnostic centers.
Yeah.
Second, the technical challenges. Bead functionalization, which is basically attaching specific molecules to the bead surface so they can bind to their targets. It's quite complex. It
Yay.
requires expertise.
Right, so finding that balance between performance, cost, and ease of use
Yeah,
seems to be a big challenge for the industry.
it is.
Looking ahead, what are some of the key trends shaping the future of the market?
There are two big ones that stand out.
Okay.
First, the increasing use of magnetic beads in liquid biopsy and cancer diagnostics.
Hmm.
This is a rapidly growing field that holds immense potential for detecting cancer earlier, less invasively, and even monitoring treatment.
Right.
The second trend is the integration of magnetic beads with automated and high-throughput systems.
Okay.
This is crucial for handling the huge number of samples used in diagnostics and research.
That makes sense.
Allows for greater efficiency and accuracy.
Automation is becoming so important in so many areas of science and medicine.
It is.
It's not surprising to see it playing a bigger role here.
Exactly.
Now, the report also provides a picture of the competitive landscape.
Yes, it does.
Who are the big players in the magnetic beads market?
So the market is very competitive. The major companies are focused on developing new products, forming partnerships, and expanding the uses for their beads. Some key players mentioned are Thermo Fisher Scientific Inc., Merck KGaA, GenScript, Cardiogenics Inc., Bangs Laboratories Inc., Sphera Tech Inc., Biorad Laboratories Inc., Miltenyi Biotech, Micromod Particle Technology GmbH, and New England Biolabs.
That's a mix of, big names in the life science industry.
Right.
And more specialized companies.
Exactly.
Focused on the beads themselves. The report also highlights some recent activities and developments, right?
Yes, it does. There have been some interesting developments recently.
Like what?
For instance, in June 2023, Preomics launched new kits designed to improve the process of enriching proteins for analysis using liquid chromatography mass spectrometry. And these kits use non-functionalized magnetic particles.
Okay.
Back in June 2022, MGI introduced their first line of magnetic beads called TQ01, specifically made for cost-effective nucleic acid testing, optimized for use in automated systems. We also saw a partnership in March 2022 between Promega Corporation and Fujifilm Cellular Dynamics, Inc. They aimed at enhancing drug discovery assays by using induced pluripotent stem cell technologies. And in January 2022, Singular Genomics Systems partnered with New England Biolabs to validate their NBNext kits for prepping DNA and RNA samples for sequencing.
Wow, so much going on.
There is. It's a very active field. These examples just illustrate the constant innovation and collaboration in this market.
That's really encouraging to see. It indicates a dynamic and evolving field. Finally, the report talks about some of the specific growth drivers in different regions.
Yes, it does.
We've looked at, the growth rates in different parts of the world, but what are some of the reasons behind those numbers?
So in North America, it's the increasing focus on precision medicine,
Yeah.
tailoring treatments to individuals based on their genetics, and the demand for advanced diagnostic tools.
Makes sense.
In Europe, it's the needs of the biotechnology and pharmaceutical sectors, driven by advancements in protein purification, genetic analysis, and drug development. In the APAC region, the rising investment and demand for tools used in molecular biology, genetics, and biomedical research in academic and research institutions is driving growth. South America is seeing growth partly from the food and beverage industry, needing reliable methods for food safety,
Oh, great.
ensuring quality by detecting toxins and pathogens. In the Middle East, it's the increasing use of magnetic beads in environmental testing to detect pollutants.
Okay.
And in Africa, it's the rising demand in forensics for DNA extraction and biomarker analysis.
It's amazing how these applications are being tailored to meet the specific needs of different parts of the world.
It is.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive into the global magnetic beads market. It's amazing to think about the big role these tiny things play in so many important areas of science and medicine.
Absolutely.
Let's recap some of the key takeaways for our listeners.
Sure. The global magnetic beads market is definitely on a strong growth path,
Yeah.
fueled by advancements in diagnostics and research. While North America currently has the largest share, the Asia-Pacific region is showing the fastest growth, and the applications are so diverse. From everyday in vitro diagnostics to cutting-edge bioresearch, with exciting progress in liquid biopsy and automated systems.
And to repeat those key figures, the market is predicted to reach a huge 11.6 billion USD by 2033.
Wow.
That's an average yearly growth of 12.20%. North America is the largest market, starting at 1.7 billion USD in 2025. But keep in mind, APAC, they begin at 1.1 billion USD and have a really impressive CAGR of 15.1%.
So to everyone listening, think about how these trends might connect to your own work or interests.
Yeah.
Whether you're in research, diagnostics, pharmaceuticals, or even environmental science or forensics, the growth in magnetic bead technology is likely to affect you.
And here's a final thought to ponder. Given that magnetic beads are being used in such a wide range of fields, from complex medical diagnostics to forensic investigations and environmental monitoring, what new and amazing applications might we see in the future?
Yeah.
How might these tiny tools revolutionize industries we haven't even thought of yet?
It's really exciting to think about.
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
It's been great.
It has.